Shalom, all praise to Yahweh Shem Shah. Double honor to the Apostles GMS. My name is Amnawa Allah. Coming at you with another video. In this video, I want to go into the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 18. Alright? And I'm just going to quote it and I'm going to break it down and give you some scriptures on it. Because the scripture says in Ecclesiastes 1 and 18, for much wisdom there's much grief. And let's get into let's go deeper into what exactly that entails. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 18. For much wisdom is much grief. I'll start from verse 17. Ecclesiastes 1 and 17. And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also was vexation of the spirit. Why? Why did he say that? Why did he say when he gave his heart to wisdom, knowing madness and folly was vexation of spirit? Because for much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth in knowledge increaseth in sorrow. So he understood that when he gave his heart to know wisdom, he began that helped him to greater understand madness and folly, and that caused a vexation of spirit. That caused him to be vexed in the spirit, and to be vexed means like to be angered, to feel upset. He felt that in his spirit, because in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth in wisdom. He that increaseth in knowledge increaseth in sorrow. Because the more wisdom, the more knowledge, understanding that you acquire, the more you begin to understand what foolishness, ignorance, and madness is. Before we came into this truth, there were many things that were foolish that we accepted because we didn't have the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to properly be able to judge. Let's get that real quick. What's that, 1 Corinthians 2 and 14? I want to say. 1 Corinthians 2 and 14. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of the Most High. Because at that time, before we came into the truth, we were natural men. We were regular men. Okay, we weren't spiritual men. For they are foolishness unto him. So the things of the Spirit of the Most High, the natural man cannot receive because they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. Right, they're spiritually discerned. Their spirit cannot discern or distinguish that which, or divide that which is righteous from unrighteous, that which is good from that which is evil. They can't distinguish between the two because they're spiritually discerned, because they don't have wisdom. Alright? But when you have wisdom and you're now able to spiritually discern between what's righteous and what's unrighteous, you begin to understand madness and you begin to understand folly. Because of wisdom you begin to be able to judge. And you understand that which is right from that which is wrong. Let me go to the book of Proverbs 4 and 7. For example, in the world, some may have thought adultery was a good thing, being with another man's woman. Some brothers out there may have thought that was a good thing. But when you come into the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Most High, when you increase in knowledge, you increase in sorrow. Because now you begin to understand madness and folly. And you begin to understand the foolish things that people do. Or rather, you begin to understand that the things that people do are foolish. Because now you're on a certain level of wisdom. You have a certain level of knowledge. So when you see somebody doing something like a man being with another man's woman, you look at that and you say, well, that's wicked. Why? Because you increase the knowledge. And then you feel sorrowful for all the foolishness and all the madness that's around you. Because before you came into the truth, you was okay with the wickedness that was around you. Because you didn't have that knowledge yet. But then when you gather that knowledge, you begin to when you increase in knowledge, you begin to increase in sorrows. Proverbs 4 and 7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom. And with all that getting, get understanding. So when you get wisdom, you're supposed to understand it. Okay? You're supposed to have the understanding. You're supposed to be able to apply the knowledge. Because many people can quote scriptures from the Bible without necessarily mean that they understand it. So he that increaseth in knowledge increaseth in sorrow. That's why Solomon said when he gave his heart to know wisdom, he knew madness and folly. And that was vexation of spirit. Because he that increaseth in knowledge, in much wisdom there is much grief. When you're wise, you begin to become grieved. Because you begin to understand that those that are around you are not wise. And you're grieved with the foolish actions that they do. Because when you increase in knowledge, you increase in sorrow. You're sorrowful and you're grieved at the foolishness and the wickedness that are around you. Because you're on a certain level of wisdom and knowledge. the more wisdom, the more knowledge that you attain, the more grief and the more sorrow is going to increase. Okay? Alright, I have another scripture here. Oh, look at this. I'm going to go to just a couple more scriptures. Ecclesiastes 2 and 14. I'm sorry, Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 22, verse 14. Alright, it says, I'll start from verse 13. Talk not much with the fool, and go not to him that have no understanding. Right? Don't talk much with a fool, and go not to him that have no understanding. Beware of him, lest thou have trouble, and thou shalt never be defiled with his fooleries. Right? If you this is wisdom right here. Okay? It tells you don't talk much with the fool. So if this person's a fool, don't talk much with him. You don't keep too much company with him, because they're a fool. And go not to him that have no understanding. A person that have no understanding, you truly aren't supposed to be acquainted with that person, or at least acquainted with that person on a high level. Why I say on a high level? Because there's a scripture in the Apocrypha. It's in my mind. I can't think of it right now. But the scripture says if thou be around in the midst of a fool, observe the time. So if you're around a person, like if you got a friend that you grew up with in the world and he's foolish, you know, if you're around that guy, you got to observe the time that you're around him. You know, but why is that? Let's read the verse again. Ecclesiastes chapter 22, verse 13. It says, talk not much with a fool, and go not to him that have no understanding. Beware of him lest thou have trouble, and thou shalt never be defiled with his fooleries. So if you beware of him, you got to beware of him lest thou have trouble. Because if he's a foolish person and you're acquainted with him, which to be acquainted means to be familiar. If he's a fool and you're heavily acquainted with him, then you can have trouble. Because his foolhardiness his foolish mentality can draw you into his foolishness. He can draw you into trouble. So you got to beware of a foolhardy person. And thou shalt never be defiled with his fooleries. Right, you won't be defiled by his fooleries because you'll be wary of him, because you may have trouble. And then when you see people that's like this, since you've increased in the knowledge of this scripture, you've increased in sorrow. Because when you see people out there that's engaging with those kind of people, you begin to feel a feeling of grief. You know? You see it every day. Depart from him, and thou shalt find rest, and never be disquieted with madness. What is heavier than lead? And what is the name thereof but a fool? Right? A fool is heavier than lead. In other words, a fool is a heavier burden than lead. Alright? It's like going around with a person that has no knowledge and is always doing something that's ignorant. You know? Never know when to keep his mouth shut. Never know when to keep his mouth shut. Always acting out. Doing these, you know, like, they'll do something like curse out a cop in the middle of the street for no reason. A cop looking at me. What the fuck y'all looking at? That's a foolish person. That person is heavier to bear than lead. That's a heavy burden, being with a fool. It says, sand and salt and the mass of iron is easier to bear than a man without understanding. Alright. Let me get another scripture. This is Proverbs chapter 27, verse 3. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 3, it says, a stone is heavy and the sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. That's self-explanatory. You see, I get another scripture. So he that increaseth in knowledge increaseth in sorrow. The more wisdom you attain, the more you're going to increase in sorrow, because you see the foolishness and the wickedness that's around you. For example, according to the Bible, homosexuality is a sin. Adultery is a sin. And when you see that around you, what happens? You grieved. You feel sorrowful about it. Because now you have the wisdom, you have the knowledge and the understanding of what is righteous. So now you understand that which is unrighteous. And you're grieved and sorrowful at the unrighteous things. Because the wisdom and the knowledge that you've acquired has allowed you to understand what's the difference between the two. It has allowed you to be able to spiritually discern between the righteous things and the wicked things. This is Ecclesiastes. I'm going to end it here. I wasn't planning on making this a long show. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 11. Then I look, like when we out there teaching, and you see how the women out there be dressed. You see how them homosexuals running around. We grieved at that. Okay? We grieved at that because of the wisdom that we've attained. cause us to be increased in sorrows, because we're grieved at the sight of anything that's adverse to the scriptures, to the word of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Ecclesiastes chapter 2 verse 11. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought. So Solomon said, I looked at all of the works that my hands have done, and on the labor that I had labored to do. And behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Right, he said there's no profit under the sun. What's under the sun? The earth. But why did he say that? And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can, notice he keeps saying to know wisdom, madness, and folly. Because knowing wisdom is knowing madness and folly. Okay? Because to be wise, you got to be able to not fall into the things of madness and the things of foolishness. So it's like it goes hand in hand. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath been already done. So Solomon's saying all the things that I've done on this earth is all vanity and vexation of spirit. What can a man do that cometh after the king? That which already been done. Only thing a king is a person of a great authority, a great prestige, riches. And what can a person do after a king? After a king passes, what can a person actually do to that's superior to a king? You really can't do anything. The only thing you can truly do is that which has already been done. If a king had an enormous mansion, you can have an enormous mansion. If a king had hundreds of wives, you can have hundreds of wives. You can't really do anything superior to a king. So Solomon is saying all the works that I've done is all the works that he's done is vanity and vexation of spirit. Because what can someone do that's superior to me? What can someone do? I'm a king. What can someone do after I pass that's superior to what I've already done? The only thing you can really do is that which has already been done. It's like celebrities. A celebrity can wear a big chain, have a big car, have a big house. But what can that celebrity do that no other celebrity really has done? Yeah, all millionaires. So it's all vanity and vexation of spirit. You can't take none of that stuff with you when you die. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. Then through all of that, he began to see that wisdom excelleth folly, as much as light excelleth darkness. So just as light, I was looking at another scripture. So just as light is far superior to the darkness, that's how superior wisdom is to folly. If you look at the sun as compared to, if you look at the morning, if you look at 12 noon as compared to 11 o'clock at night, there's a stark difference in the brightness that's outside, because the light far excels that darkness. The brightness of that light far excels the darkness. The brightness of the sun far excels the brightness of the moon. The light of the day far excels the darkness of the night. And that's how far wisdom excels folly. So Solomon is basically saying it's foolishness for a person to so it's foolishness for a person to have done all of these labors in the earth, because it's all folly. You can't take none of it with you, and there's really nothing that anyone can do after a king that's superior to a king. Okay? So then he began to understand wisdom excelleth. So then he's beginning to understand wisdom excelleth folly as much as light excelleth darkness. He understands that wisdom is far superior than the works of your hands. Alright? And to give you another example of that, I'll give you this example right here. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 1. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of one's death than the day of one's birth. Right? The day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth, because you died. You've perished. So all of the turmoil, all of the hardships and all the afflictions that you went through in life is now over. You're now at peace. But he said a good name is better than the precious ointment. I started the last part of the verse. I want to break that down. I want to end it on this. He said a good name is better than the precious ointment. You gain a good name by what? Wisdom. That's why in the book of Sirach, it speaks about let us praise the famous men. That's in Ecclesiasticus, the 44th chapter. It speaks about all of them wise men of the Lord. All of them maintain good names because of their wisdom. Ecclesiastes 7:1 says a good name is better than the precious ointment. A precious ointment, you take an ointment and you put it on yourself, right? An oil, and you put it on yourself. oil perfume, whatever it is that people choose to use. The smell lingers for a while, but then eventually the smell fades. It'll either fade away on its own eventually, or you take a shower and you wash it off. But a good name is more precious. A good name is better than a precious ointment. Why? Because a good name lasts longer. Even to this day, we're still talking about Noah. Even to this day, we're still talking about Yahweh Shah. Even to this day, we're still talking about Solomon. We still talk about David. We still talk about Isaiah, and so on and so forth. All right, because of their wisdom. So, like I started off earlier in Ecclesiastes 1:18, it says, "For much wisdom is much grief, for he that increaseth in knowledge increaseth in sorrow." The more knowledge you increase, the more sorrow the more sorrow is going to increase, because with the knowledge that you've gained, with the knowledge that you've attained, you begin to understand all of the things that's foolishness, and you begin to be sorrow at those things. Because of the wisdom that you have, you begin to feel grieved at the foolishness and madness that's around you, because now you have the proper eyes, the spiritual eyes, to see and to differentiate and to discern between righteousness and wickedness. That's the reason why we hate America so much. Alright? And that's what we're waiting for the Lord to come back and bring us the kingdom. So with that, all you brothers learn something, and I'm going to close and I'm going to say, Shalom.